So your presenters today are Niels Stobart and Cameron Yusuf. Cameron is the CTO of our partner Storage Made Easy, and Neil runs global engineering at Cloudian. Both have been in the industry for over 20 years, and I'm very happy to have them join us today to share their experience in the field. So GDPR, as a marketing guy myself, I've been forced into processes and integrity around customer data some years ago. Not so much because of the laws, but driven by the way the customers want us to behave with their data, including deleting all the data if they request it. And I personally experienced that it's not an easy request. This data sits not only in databases, but also in unstructured files and objects, including mailboxes and backups. So GDPR is now becoming an active law in 2 weeks. So we would like to share with you how Cloudian and Storage Made Easy have helped customers to become ready for GDPR. But first, let's dive a little bit more into the facts. So we have the same understanding of what is needed to comply with GDPR. And I would like to hand over to our presenters today, Cameron Yusuf and Niels Stobart.
Just going to provide a few quick facts about what GDPR is. GDPR is a set of EU laws that are coming into effect this month on 25th of May. It's an EU-wide initiative that gives the EU citizens a few rights and puts some onus on the companies that provide digital services to the EU citizens. And it's across the board. So the same laws, they apply across all the EU companies. And if you are an European company, or if you are a foreign company like Facebook or Google, which are based in the US, you have to comply with the GDPR if you are dealing with the data that with the EU citizens' data. And the basic purpose is that, okay, we provide some rights to the EU citizens, and the EU citizens also know that how their data is being used. Egbert, next slide, please. So what are the core principles? The core principles are that the EU citizens, they know where the data is being used, how is it getting used. They should give consent to them. They can ask the different companies that, okay, what information do they have about the person, and we will cover those things. That, okay, what that implies, that what companies do they have to do to meet those core GDPR principles when they are dealing with the EU with the personal data. Egbert, next slide if possible, please. So the first thing is that whenever you go to a website, the website, it has to explicitly ask that, okay, what data is are you going to collect, and what the data will be used for. And the consent is not that someone just goes once at the website and says that, okay, yes, I've got the consent. It's not forever, and you have to ask after a certain period of time again that, okay, for the user's consent, and the user, he should have the ability to revoke that consent also. Then another important thing is that the users, they have the right, which is called subject access request, that, okay, what data do you have about me? You have to provide that information by law without any charge in normal circumstances, and give the user that, okay, that's what the data we have about you, and that's how it is getting used, and what is the legal basis, and why do we have that that kind of data for you. If the user wants to leave your service, then you also have to tell them that they can ask that, okay, can you remove the data that you have about me? And it should be done in a way that you cannot use that data again. It has to either be anonymized or completely removed from your systems. And those systems, they can be your databases, they can be your marketing lists, it can be the documents that you have, and all that kind of stuff. Then the last thing is that if you have a data breach, it puts the onus now on you that you have to notify the users or notify the authorities that there has been a data breach to the data, where some data it got compromised. Egbert, next slide, please. So if you go to Storage Made Easy website, we have prepared a practical guide also for you guys that that you can kind of a checklist that, okay, what training do you need to give the employees, what planning do you need to do, how do you implement it, and how do you influence it. Egbert, next slide, please. Okay, and if now here is the crux, that you have to comply with the GDPR, because if you are found in breach of GDPR, then in that case you can be fined for 4% of your gross turnover, or 20 million, or a fine of 20 million euros. Egbert, next slide, please. So from here, Neil, he is going to mention that, okay, what does Cloudian give you to be GDPR compliant, and the features, functionality that it provides.
Thanks, Cameron. Hello, everybody. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the actual storage of data. So what Cameron's just been talking about, and what GDPR is all about, is about managing, the end user, the EU citizens' personal data, personal information that's being held. So Storage Made Easy, Cameron will show you a little bit more detail about their solution, which really is about categorizing and managing information. But you also need to store that data, and you need to store it appropriate to what the GDPR is requiring from you, especially around security and access. So I'm just going to roll back a little bit, because data storage is a challenge, and now we've got additional regulations coming in that make it even more of a challenge. So when we're trying to categorize our data, how we're going to organize our data, how are we going to sort our data so that we can comply with these regulations, we've got an awful lot of data that we have to sift through and evaluate. So just looking at the sort of the charts there, we are seeing an exponential increase in data, and this is unstructured data. This is stuff that sits outside of databases and is not easily sortable, searchable. So we're going to try and do something about that. But then you've also got increasing complexity. As you've got more data, you have to have more storage systems, and of course there's a plethora of systems out there that you can use. It's not just SAN or NAS or disks in a server. There's now cloud options, there's hybrid options, and more storage devices that you have to manage. It becomes a lot more difficult, a lot more expensive, and just trying to find where data is becoming a real challenge. So I'm just trying to advance the screen. Egbert, if you could advance the screen for me, please. So Cloudian Hyperstore, we're a software-defined storage solution, and that means you can deploy us on any hardware, virtual machines or any server hardware that you use. But we also do supply turnkey appliances as well. And really what we're offering is a scale-out storage cluster that is scalable way beyond traditional storage technologies such as SAN and NAS. We use object storage technology in the back to manage data placement, and we can scale up to over exabytes of storage, so really giving you a platform that can grow as you need it. But we can start relatively small. We can start about 100 terabytes, so if you kind of think we're going to grow significantly over the next couple of years, we can start at a relatively small footprint, so you can get onto that cycle. But really, one of the benefits of object storage and what we do here is that we can really drive down the cost of storage. So all of this extra data that you have to hold, you know, and holding it for a longer periods of time to meet your regulatory requirements. You know, you want to look at a cost-effective platform. And of course, once data is in here, it needs to be protected and it needs to be secured, which I'll talk about in a moment. So one of the big trends at the moment is the use of public cloud services, and clearly there's very good reason why you would. You know, they're pretty much transparently scalable, you know, always available, automatic data protection. You don't have to worry about that yourself. You know, it's got security built in. You can access it from anywhere, from any device, and obviously pay as you grow. So what we've done at Cloudian is try to build a storage platform that you can deploy in your own data center behind your own firewalls that emulates that cloud storage service and gives you, you know, everything you see that is goodness from the public cloud. But why would you want to put it in your data center? You know, rather than putting it out to cloud? I mean, there's a number of reasons. There's performance. You're never going to get the performance of LAN type technology across wide area networks if you have huge amounts of data to shift to a backup, for example, every night. Very unlikely that you're going to have the network capability to deal with that. So there are workloads that will always remain in the data center. Security. There's many organizations that, you know, forbidden to store or use public cloud services for whatever reason. You know, having it in your own data centers behind your own firewalls, you've got absolute control over, you know, what you have there. Compliance, which is relevant to this particular conversation. You know, many compliance requirements state that you can't use cloud storage, or that you need to apply certain security procedures around, you know, your data. You know, you need to be able to control where your data is located. So, you know, that is something else that, you know, really the only way you can control that is by doing it yourself. And then of course, cost of access. Again, cost always comes into any design of any IT architecture. And, you know, object storage in the cloud and on-prem really does drive down the cost of storage. But what we find is that, you know, beyond a certain capacity point, usually around about 400 or 500 terabytes, it is much more cost effective to deploy a data storage platform in your own data center rather than pushing it out to cloud. Now, Cloudian does have the capability to tier data out to cloud, that data that is very cold, you know, that's not going to be accessed, because of course, once data goes to the cloud, any retrieval, there is an additional charge on that. So we're just a, you know, scalable storage platform. We can just see here a bunch of servers. Every time you add a server, you're adding another set of resources to the cluster. You get more capacity and you get more performance. And then we use distributed data protection techniques such as erasure coding and replication to distribute data evenly across all of the nodes. So as you add another node in, you get more capacity and you can start to balance data across that new node. And it's all non-disruptive. You get linear performance. Every time you add another node, you get more you know, data throughput capability. It's a single management platform, and it really is you know, trying to help, you know, deal with that you know, storage system bloat that you might find where you have, you know, multiple NAS or SAN systems with data distributed across all these different platforms. So it's just a single management point, and, you know, we can support millions of users. You know, it's extremely scalable, not from a capacity, but from a management point of view as well. So they're the basics of what Cloudian Hyperstore storage solution is. I just want to go through sort of, you know, a few key features and why it's relevant to what GDPR is asking of us to manage our data. So if we think about the first one that Cameron talked about, you know, that right, the individual's right for data to be protected safely. You know, we need to make sure that when an individual gives us permission to store their data, that we are going to protect it. It's valuable to us. It's also valuable to the user. So losing data is really not acceptable. It's not acceptable in any enterprise organization. You know, it's pretty straightforward. That's why we do lots of backups and lots of snapshots. You know, we want to make sure that that data is protected and available. And certainly if we're offering, you know, data as a service or storage as a service, you know, this is, you know, an actual IT service that we're offering. It needs to be always online. So there's a number of issues that we want, you know, that we need to protect against. You know, protection against device failures, so disk drives failing or servers failing or networks failing. You know, protection against logical errors, whether that's accidental deletion, whether that's data corruption, or any sort of security breach, ransomware, viruses. Data degradation, or kind of silent corruption, as it's commonly known, also known as bit rot, where just over time the storage media degrades and, you know, the magnetic fields, you know, just fade, or, you know, on tape devices, you know, the material that is stored on does degrade over time. And that's silent corruption, because applications typically don't know that's happened until you actually have to read the data back. And we think about disaster recovery, business continuity plans around, you know, whole site failures. So we want to be able to offer data protection, disaster recovery capability, you know, to protect against all of those eventualities, which is what Hyperstore does. And we do that, you know, by enable to, you know, by mechanism using something called storage policies that allow different storage policies, different data protection and DR policies to be applied across different data sets. So you've got the flexibility to have, you know, some data sets to be, you know, replicated across 3 data centers, you know, really super protected data. Whereas, you know, you might have a user that doesn't want to pay the money, you know, for that sophisticated level of data protection. So they might just want a simple data protection strategy which costs less money. So we can offer, you know, a tiered approach to your data protection strategies. And finally, Worm. Worm is kind of almost the ultimate protection against any sort of security breaches, you know, viruses or ransomware or any sort of logical errors. And Worm really, what it's designed to do is to lock down data for a specified amount of time, usually in association with regulatory requirements. And when you lock that data down, it just cannot be modified and it cannot be deleted until, you know, the time period expires. So no way can anything like ransomware or virus get to that original copy of data. It's designed that that data can be used in a court of law as if it was a piece of paper, you know, that it is tamper-proof. Data security, again, one of the things that Cameron mentioned was about having to notify users of, you know, breaches of security, you know, data loss. So, you know, that individual's right for data privacy is absolutely key when it comes to designing any sort of data management platform. And, you know, we need to protect data from, you know, so many security threat vectors these days, you know, ransomware, virus, you know, malicious internal, you know, staff. You know, we need to make sure that only the right people see the right data. But the whole point of modern day storage architectures is that, you know, it's very flexible in terms of access, that anybody can access it from any device. So there's a trade-off between, you know, securing your data and making it extremely flexible, you know, for people to access. So we've got a, you know, a very multifaceted security implementation, you know, to try and protect against all the different, you know, threats that we might see, from, you know, encryption, you know, in flight, for data at rest. We have role-based access. We have access control permissions on individual objects. Yeah, and obviously the slides move, so I can't see what the other points are, but you get my point. So if we can avoid any security breaches, then, you know, we don't have to do any notification, and that's key, right? And any security breach is also very, very bad PR. Locality control is an interesting one. You know, very much people start to distribute data across multiple geographical regions, you know, for one reason, disaster recovery and business continuity plans, and two, just to distribute data so that you can get data closer to where it's needed. Certainly, you know, if you're running any sort of media platform, you know, video streaming platform, you might have customers all over the world, so you want to put the most popular videos out close to the end consumer so that they can you know, watch those videos with the minimal amount of latency. So there's many reasons why people want to distribute data. So we need to make sure that any data processors and controllers are compliant with GDPR regardless of where they are located, you know, on the planet. And where you store your data is important. So, you know, storing data in the US or with US organizations, it's not clear. You know, the regulations aren't clear that the US data privacy regulations, you know, just do not align with GDPR. So there's certain agreements with certain countries that absolutely do stand up. And of course, anybody in Europe will comply with GDPR. Canada has a good relationship and always adhere to the EU data privacy regulations. But the US, you know, just don't have a federal agreement. They leave it down to each individual state to set their own policy. So there can be concern over, you know, storing data, not only just in the US, but actually in any data center owned by a US organization. So you just need to be clear about how that applies to you. So what we do at Cloudian, you know, we can offer a deployment model where, you know, you can have a storage platform just in a single data center or in multiple data centers. And then when you set your storage policies, which data center do you want to use? For different data sets that might have different locality requirements, you know, that can be configured and managed so that you can guarantee that you never have data outside of the permitted locations. Putting intelligence, you know, to the data is one of the drivers, and it's certainly something that, you know, Storage Made Easy are going to talk about as well. But you know what, if you can do this at the storage level where you have multiple workloads, multiple data sets coming in from different data sources, you can actually tag the data. You can tag the data with, you know, sort of user-defined metadata. So you can tag pictures with, you know, a name and date and location and what the picture's about. You can never really, you know, do any sort of intelligent search on any sort of media because you can, you know, there's no sort of rich text search that you can do. So if an individual is requesting, you know, what information do you hold on me? How can you possibly search across every platform that you have data in, such as databases, email? That's probably a little bit easier than, you know, file systems with images or videos or voice recordings. So, you know, if we can, as we ingest that data, if we start to tag the data with relevant information, regardless of where that data has come from, we now have a single searchable storage pool where, regardless of the data type, we can actually provide a single search across all data. This is really going to help for those you know, requests for data access. Now, existing data, you know, doesn't have these metadata tags, but I just think this is the way that things are going to go, where, you know, every data ingest will run through some sort of metadata tagging so that it is more intelligent and more easily found in the future. And of course, this adds value anyway to your business because you actually can do much more intelligent things with the data that you have and actually, you know, feed that back into, you know, analysis of, you know, all sorts of aspects of your business that can really help, you know, improve product, services, or, you know, reduce cost. Can you advance the slide, please, Egbert? There we go. So on cost, you know, all that's great. You know, you need a storage platform. You need a storage platform that's going to help you manage all your data, hopefully consolidate your data and actually provide easy searching. But as I've mentioned, the data is increasing exponentially, so we need to be mindful of, what we're spending on this. The more data, budgets don't grow. You have to spend the same amount of money, on more storage. So this was what we're really trying to help, is to provide a single platform that's scalable. It will reduce the management burden. It'll make finding data easier, streamline processes. And, because of the software-defined model, we can use traditional server hardware, which typically has a much lower margin on it from, your hardware providers. Servers, are a cheaper, more cost-effective storage platform than traditional storage arrays. And just managing one single platform rather than managing multiple storage islands, as you have been doing with traditional storage architectures, really cost saving can be, significant when it comes to this, whilst also meeting your GDPR requirements. So with that, that's the basic kind of where data is going to end up. So I'm going to hand back over to Cameron, who's going to talk about Storage Made Easy and their solutions, and really how you can manage your data and provide access to your data in a much more structured and easy fashion.
All right, thanks, Neil. And now, okay, so here I'm just going to give you a brief overview about what Storage Made Easy product Enterprise File Fabric is. What functionality does it provide? How does it work with the Cloudian? And then we will dive into the features and the functionality and the workflows that you can use either as an ISP or as an organization to be GDPR compliant. In a sense, you can think of Enterprise File Fabric as a gateway, a file sync and share solution that wraps around all different kind of storages and provides you and your users with a unified view. Cloudian, we have a connector for Cloudian. Cloudian is one of our closest partners. We work we have the relationship that's been going on for a few years. We certify with the Cloudian. We are aware of each other's roadmaps. So when new features come on Cloudian or we need something, we talk to Cloudian that, okay, that's a use case, that's a good thing. There is a very strong partnership where Cloudian resells Enterprise File Fabric. So if you have Cloudian, you can connect to the Cloudian storage. In addition to all the other different providers, we provide about 60 different storage providers, be it OneDrive, be it Dropbox. Normally they are used as a shadow IT, or if you're using Amazon S3 or your internal systems if you want to do the migration. Once you get the single pane of glass view or a single view, you and your users, they can access the data through the desktop, just like a normal shared drive. They can access it through the web. They can access it. We have an Outlook plugin. We have a OS 10 plugin, OS 10 mail plugin. We have mobile clients that the users they can access the data from. So it's the data that's stored in Cloudian, Enterprise File Fabric, that works as the security layer, and the envelope on top of that to provide access to that data in a very user-friendly way. It's multi-platform, as I already mentioned. And what that means is that the users, they can access the data from anywhere. And if they want to share the data, if they want to collaborate with each other, be them internal users, external users, they can share the data with those. Now, one of the GDPR tenets is that, okay, you need to know where your data is. So with Enterprise File Fabric, we are providing a single pane of glass or a unified view where the user doesn't know, but we provide them features on top of that. That okay, where does the data come from? Where does it reside? What are the different security settings for that? Do you want to set up a policy if you are sharing it internally or externally? Do you want to add added encryption? All those things, you can enforce them using policies. And in the product demo with Cloudian, I will show that to you. So, just like Cloudian, we provide Enterprise File Fabric as a virtual appliance. You can deploy it on different hypervisors, or all the popular hypervisors. They are supported: VMware, Hyper-V, Xen, KVM, and you can download them, fully configurable, very, very easy to set up. And you can also deploy it in a clustered mode to scale out. You have a scale out, highly scalable storage, Cloudian at the back, and then at the top you also have a Enterprise File Fabric that is almost linearly scalable. As the number of users or your usage grows, you just add more nodes to the system. And you can also, if you want to, you can also deploy it on the cloud. And for UK government customers, we partner with, we are part of UK GovCloud, and then there are different options if you want to deploy it on Azure or Amazon or Memset, that's a UK-based company, a data center. You can deploy it there also, or most probably you will be deploying it in your own data center, just like you are deploying Cloudian in your own data center. So the locality is there also. Okay. Now, to be GDPR compliant, what are the different kind of features that we provide? The first thing is that, okay, and these are the things that I will talk about. That okay, what compliant storage, how you can ensure that the users, they are accessing or they are sharing the files securely, and who is accessing them. How do you identify sensitive data? Cloudian, they have a metadata facility, but how do you populate that metadata? Understand who has access to the data, how do you secure the data, and how do you enforce it across the full state? Okay, so the first thing is that, okay, use GDPR to be GDPR compliant. Data protection, that's part of it. So for that, as Neil mentioned in his, that most probably you will be storing the data inside EU boundaries, or if it's very sensitive data, you will be storing it in on-prem using a solution like Cloudian. Then after that, you want to encrypt it. You want to store your data at rest in an encrypted format. Cloudian provides functionality that where you can encrypt the data. It provides server-side encryption, and it also provides client-side encryption that we support, so your data at rest that is encrypted. If you have shadow IT and you are trying to consolidate the data, and or the other storage providers that you have that do not provide as strong security as Cloudian, Enterprise File Fabric that also provides FIPS certified encryption at rest, where the keys, they are either kept in Enterprise File Fabric, or you can use an external key store to keep the keys, and the data, everything that passes through Enterprise File Fabric, that will be encrypted and stored in rest, stored in an encrypted format at rest. You lose the keys, you lose your data. There is no way out of it. We also provide that location. That's very important for GDPR and Enterprise File Fabric. It provides you that you can, it is aware that where the data is stored and what IP addresses. It's aware what IP addresses the user is uploading or download the data, and you can set up different policies for your data, plus for access. That okay, users, this data that can be accessed from certain IPs, this data cannot be accessed from outside EU. Then, if you have an existing LDAP or Active Directory for your user authentication and authorization, Enterprise File Fabric It fully integrates with that with the LDAP and Active Directory, and you can do automatic provisioning. You can set up the permissions. You can set up the roles inside Active Directory or LDAP for full access control, and the access control is very, very granular. Okay. Now, one thing is that, okay, you have your data, it's locked down, it's secured, you have end-to-end encryption, everything is encrypted from the client to Enterprise File Fabric, from Enterprise File Fabric to the storage like Cloudian. Now, and the end users, they are accessing it using map network drives, offline or online sync applications. They're synchronizing. Now, if they want to share the data, you do want to set up different policies on that. Now, for that, what Storage Made Easy provides is it provides a set of policies that you can say that, okay, if you are sharing a file, are you sharing it with an external user or an internal user? If you are sharing with an external user, is the policy that you always have to set up the password? Once you have set up the password, how do you share the password? Do you want to set it up using send it totally separately using an email or using an SMS? All those things, they are provided by Storage Made Easy. You can set up the number of downloads. One major thing is that someone generates a link, sends it to someone, all right, and anyone can access it. If you set up the number of downloads, and you can say that, okay, 2 people can download it, the email is hacked or the email is forwarded, no one else can use that shared link to access the data. And you can set those policies at an individual level, or you can set it across your whole state. Okay. Then the other important thing that you want to do is that Neil mentioned that, okay, you can add meta tags, but how do you get those meta tags? Whenever anything comes through, we provide personally identified information module. It comes with a set of rules. When a file is uploaded and stored on Cloudian, Enterprise File Fabric, it will scan that file. There are built-in patterns like passport number, NHS, patient number, and a lot of different patterns that we are providing out of the box. But if you want to, if you have specific patterns, you can also provide your own specific patterns there. And those patterns, those detection rules, they will run on the data. And once those patterns are run, if any sensitive information is found, then it will be tagged, that file. There will be a red icon alongside it that, okay, this file that contains sensitive information or PII information. You can generate reports on that which files have PII information. Your DP, you can set policies that who gets notified that, okay, as a user, he has uploaded a sensitive file. So you can take corrective actions. And that saves you from uploading sensitive information about your data. Okay. And you know that, okay, this system that's not secure, I want to move it to a more secure system, so you can take actions also on that and move the data to a more secure platform. And again, I will show that to you in the demo. Okay. Now, all the users, we are doing the users, they're accessing the data, they're uploading files, they're sharing it, they're collaborating it. You also want to detect in real time that, okay, what's happening on the system? Is there any breach? You want to get notified very, very quickly. Enterprise File Fabric, it provides every event that's logged. You can generate reports from those logs, and also you can access those logs in real time as a stream. So if you have an intrusion detection system, you can pass those to the intrusion detection system. If you want to pass it to Splunk, to Redis, to RabbitMQ, or any other intrusion detection system, you can pass it, distribute it across your organization, and find out what is the access pattern. Okay. And all those policies, everything, not everyone needs those policies, so everything is configurable. there are a set of policies that you can apply just for one organization, you can apply for just one team or for a number of users, or across the whole state of across Cloudian, if you're using S3, across S3, if you're using OneDrive, across OneDrive in the cloud. Okay. And then every data, you can enable that all the data that is indexed, and you can also do content search on that. Again, that ties closely with the personally identifiable information, and I will show you that in the demo. Okay. So that was just a brief overview that how do you secure your data using for GDPR compliance using Enterprise File Fabric. We also provide a lot more functionality. Enterprise File Fabric is multi-tenant if you're an ISP, and if you want to provide securely your customers Dropbox-like functionality with Cloudian at the back end, you can use Enterprise File Fabric. It has about 60 different connectors. It works with existing data and your new data. With Enterprise File Fabric, it does not store data or your files in any proprietary format. What that allows you is that it allows you to have multi-channel access, and that is a big differentiator. You can access the same data using Enterprise File Fabric, and you can also go directly to Cloudian, and if there are any other tools to access that data, you can access those files, those objects using those tools. It's not stored in any proprietary format. Easily scalable, you add more nodes. It's linearly scalable, can be deployed on-prem or in the cloud or as a hybrid model. We also provide what we call protocol gateways. If you have a Cloudian, you can access it. Cloudian provides a S3 interface, but using Enterprise File Fabric, you can also access the same data with all the controls provided by Enterprise File Fabric using SFTP, FTP, and FTPS and WebDAV protocols also. Okay, now I am going to jump into the demo now. And for the demo, I'll just give a quick overview about the application interface and then show you a few features for how the files are shared, how you can access the data, how you can set different policies there also. Okay. So first of all, this is the administrator view. You can imagine it like the root view. Everything is fully configurable and brandable. So once you get the Enterprise File Fabric, you want to brand it. It depends how much branding do you want to do. So if you just want to change the colors or the logos, you can do that very, very easily. So if I want to change the colors, I can just do that, change the color and update the options. As it is a user interfacing, so we just change the color here on the fly. If you want to do more reskinning, set your own logos for the user interface, give user instructions on the home page, all that kind of stuff, you can also do that. You can upload your own CSS, your own images, your own favicons, and all that kind of stuff. So everything is extremely configurable. If you are an ISP, you can define different tiers of packages. You can say that, okay, these are my users, and I just want to, these are all the different providers do we support, what kind of different providers do we want to support, what are locking, do we want to provide locking functionality, trash functionality, and all that kind, all these things. Everything is configurable. The Enterprise File Fabric out of the box is set up with sensible choices, but it's your choice if you want to restrict or provide different tiers of functionality there. Okay. One thing I do want to mention is that everything is API driven. So you do not have to use the user interface that I'm showing you. Everything that I'm showing you here, that can also be done through the API. Okay. Once you have configured your users, they can log in, and here I have a team account configured with Cloudian. Very, very easy. If you want to add the storage, you just go to the dashboard. You want to add a new provider. All you need to do is that, okay, choose the provider. Okay, I choose Cloudian, add a provider, and once you have done that, just enter the endpoint, access key, secret key, and if you want to index the data so the content is searchable, you can do that also, and the provider is it. For this demonstration, I have already added a Cloudian provider, and I have a few files there. This is the web user interface that you can use, and the end users, they will be either using that interface, or they can also access it through the mobile clients or through the drives. You will see that there are certain folders that have a small head on those. These are shared folders. You can set up different permissions on those folders. You can set the access by role or by user also. I have a few users, so N and Heavier, I can set up read-write permissions on those folders for per user or marketing. If you are setting them up for the roles, those roles that they can be taken from Active Directory or LDAP. So there is one place where you can manage everything, like if you're doing it. Okay. And you can have multiple authentication systems. You can add Active Directory, you can add LDAP, and quite granular controls that however your LDAP schema there is. Okay. Now, once that is set up, if you want to share the files, so here are a few files there. So I'll just go to the finance, and here you will see that, okay, the IP information, who uploaded the file, that's available, which country was it uploaded from, what was the region, what was the location. So we gathered that information and provide it to the end users. Previews, they are available for the files if someone wants to preview them. If you want to share the files, again, very, very easy. Share by URL or an email. So here I have disabled it, so I got the message, but you can set up different permissions there. And everything that can be set up in the policies. Okay. So like on the user governance, that, okay, what different functionalities do you want to provide? If you are sharing files, can you share the folders? Can you, if the files are getting shared, or how many, what's the maximum that they can be downloaded? You can preset them across all your data. Do you want to set up time expiry? What's the default value? Do you need a password for that? So I have set a few policies there. And now if I go to the file manager, so the policy that's updated, and if I go to the cloud manager, and I will be uploading a file here. So I will just upload it to finance. All right, so now if I want to share a file, so sorry, that's the download. I just want to share a file by URL or email. And now it's forcing me that, okay, I have to set this up. I can only set up because I set it. And I also have to set up a password that will be shared with the user. Okay, and a new link that will be generated. Okay, and then that link that can be sent to the user. Once he copies it, they can only download it, and then there is a time limit also. Neil talked about meta tags. So here I am just going to upload a file that contains some personal information. So once I upload a file here, you will notice that, okay, the file is getting scanned now. And shortly, once the file is scanned, if it contains any personally identifiable information. It does, so that's changed to PII. It's automatically tagged now that, okay, this file, it contains your email or some email there, okay? You can also do a preview. Here you will get a full report that, okay, sorry, for that file, you'll get a preview for that file. You will see that in the info page that, okay, what are the persons? So it contained all these different email addresses. And if you just want to search that, give me all the files that you are using that have PII, you can just say that, okay, give me all the files. And here we go. Here is our file that's automatically tagged and automatically classified for that. If you want to do content search, you can also do content search. And remember, everything that's here in this demo, that's stored on Cloudian, and we have added these features. So I've just done a search on that, and that's just a common word, but it has indexed the content, and you can do deep searches on that. And you can combine different searches, or you can say that, okay, the files that contain that, but all these rules, they are there. And here again, as an administrator, I got a notification, and you can set up different actions when a sensitive file is uploaded that, okay, what actions do I need to take? Here I've specified that, okay, send an email and notify me in the console that, okay, a sensitive file has been uploaded here. If you have your own specific rules, everything is, as I mentioned, everything is configurable. So you can set up your own PII rules, and it's a JSON file where you can give the patterns, the next actions, and all that, and then the new data, where those detectors, they will run on those. We have open sourced these detectors. They are available on GitHub. And if you want to contribute, you can also contribute to that. Every operation that is audit logged, and you can see that, okay, who uploaded the file, like a user as Cloudian, I uploaded, downloaded, or I logged in. So you can specify the operations by user also, who logged in, all that kind of stuff. And it can also be taken as a stream, or if you want to export it as a zip file, you can build your report and then export it as a zip file or export it as a CSV file if you want to provide it for compliance or a subject access request. Up to now, I've been showing you all these things in the user interface. You can also access these in the, so here, exactly the same data, but you can access it in Windows just as it is, just a native Windows drive. Okay, so that's the file that we uploaded. The user, he can edit it and open it and just use as it's just a normal shared drive. So that was a quick overview about storage, Cloudian, and Storage Made Easy Enterprise File Fabric. Thank you. And here are the contact details if someone wants to contact.
Thanks again for your time, Cameron and Neil. Thanks all attendees for joining us.